everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Brendan, Cliff Jumper, and we are getting into the Sequoia project today for a couple of not necessarily necessary, but definitely worthwhile upgrades. We're going to replace the head unit with a more modern touchscreen unit that has CarPlay. My wife and I went on a trip this past year, and the rental car that we had CarPlay, and it was game-changing for us. It was so much better of an experience than fiddling with your standard Bluetooth stuff and having to figure out a mount for the cell phone and all that hoo-ha. So it was great to be able to just do it through the head unit. So we're installing that in the Sequoia. I've chosen a Sony unit from Crutchfield, and just go out there on record and say I am not affiliated with Crutchfield. I am not sponsored by Crutchfield. I'm just a longtime customer, and they make it pretty easy to install. Now, in most previous purchases I've done with Crutchfield, it's come with a plug-and-play wiring kit and a harness adapter, and I just unplug the old thing, plug in the new thing, and we're off to the races. I was a little surprised and somewhat disappointed to find that this didn't actually come with that. It's requiring me to do wiring. Now, if you followed my channel at all, you know that I'm not really a stranger to wiring and soldering. I'm used to it. But seriously, Crutchfield, what the heck? You kind of let me down. You hurt my heart a little bit. I buy from you because you make it so easy. And to find that you didn't do the plug-and-play wiring harness kit adapter for this, well, we're just going to move past that, get this installed, because I'm taking my family on a road trip this weekend, and I'd really like to have the stereo all working the way it's supposed to. And so that's the goal for tonight, is to get that all taken care of. Now, theoretically, to remove the radio, as we're going to be replacing the head unit, there are just a couple of screws located right up in here that hold the trim panel in place. So I'm going to make sure that I don't lose those. And after those screws are out, then the rest of the whole bezel theoretically just unsnaps and we can get to it. So that's what I've been told. Let's see if that actually works. And told that it unsnaps from the bottom. So I'm gonna put my little spider here. Oh, look at that. Oh wow, yeah, hey, look at that. That just, the whole thing does just slide out, and all that stuff is connected. So I'm just gonna lay that there, and we've got 4 10mm bolts that are gonna keep that in place. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my tools for that and pop this out. All right, now I'm gonna turn up the torque a little. All right, I guess they installed it with Kung Fu Voodoo Monkey Death Grip. Probably not necessary to have that level of torque holding this stuff in. Oh my. Yeah, so that's I may need to actually go get a socket wrench. Yep. So socket wrench is going to be called into play for these other, because they're too powerful for the torque on my little rinky-dink screwdriver.
5 minutes later.
One thing to note, if you are removing your factory radio and putting in another radio, make sure that you remove any media before you unplug everything, because otherwise, you know, finding the right 12-volt hookup to connect to power for the sake of removing your precious CDs and whatnot can be tricky. So here we have the back of it, and we need to undo these harnesses. And all right, so believe that, okay, that just squeezes and unplugs. This one I can't see, but I think, okay, yeah, the antenna unplugs. I think that's the remote. And this, and there's just that squeezy clip underneath, and it should theoretically, yes, all right, it's free, yay! And then I will have to look at all the different things that are going to plug into the new radio that I put in there. So I know there's some wiring that I have to do. I'll do that on the workbench before we bring it over here and deal with that. And I think there's also a switch that I have to deal with that has to do with the brake pedal, brake light indicator, to something with the video. I was reading something about that in the instructions. So anyway, factory radio out. So the stuff is out. Now we are ready to actually start repairing and then replacing the stuff. All right, for our next task, in order to install the new Sony head unit, I have to do some wiring. So we've got this pigtail unit from Crutchfield that is going to plug into the factory stereo harness in the vehicle, so I don't have to cut anything there. And that is going to get spliced into this pigtail harness, which is the one for the Sony head unit. So there's a little diagram that they send me, and I'm going to just be soldering them together and protecting it with heat shrink afterwards. And hopefully that'll go pretty smooth. We'll be able to pop the head unit right in. The other thing that we're going to do here is this is going to actually require a little bit of trickery. This is the steering wheel control interface, and this is going to let us use the factory steering wheel radio controls with the new head unit. But this one actually requires that I have to splice into the factory harness there. So that's not something that I really enjoy, but we're going to do this. So anyway, let's take care of the head unit first. We're just going to start by tinning all the wires. For those of you who don't do a lot of soldering, it just means we're going to be putting some flux on the wires themselves, and then a small coating of solder, and that will help these all go together really easily. So just sort of, there you go. And that'll help that solder to another wire, and we're going to do that with all of them.
Hours later.
All right, so I've run the Bluetooth microphone. I clipped it right here, and when I put this panel back in place, it's gonna be nice and snug and not really obtrusive. I also took the opportunity to wire in my Valentine 1 to switched power, so I can mount it up here and it'll just turn off and on, rather than the ghetto. I've been throwing it on the dashboard. So this will be way better. So that's happening. And so with the remote, I had to run it all the way around underneath this panel, down through the dash, under the dash and it pops out right here. So yeah, we're making good progress. All right, theoretically we have all the wiring correct, and got the pigtail plugged in to the car. I'm gonna go ahead and plug the other things that need to go into the back of the radio so we can test it. So we've got, oh, I need to see which connections those go to, and then I can plug them in. But yeah, we are like 90% of the way there in terms of the wiring, I think. And we shall see in just a second. Moment of truth, everything is wired up. Let's see if it actually turns on. All right, we got power. It's asking us for that sort of stuff. All right, so let's do this.
Any ideas?
I realized after I started playing it that YouTube copyright stuff was going to kick in and mute the audio anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and dub some imaginary music there. But it works, so now I'm going to reassemble all the rest of this. We're in good shape.
20 minutes later.
And voila, it is done. We've got it installed, and the steering wheel buttons work, and everything works, and the interior is back together. So mission successful here. Very happy with how this has turned out. I will mention that I chose this Sony unit, A, because Sony reliability is a thing. You know, I'm very happy with Sony. B, it actually has a volume knob, so that's not to be understated in these days of buttons. I can look without looking, you know, muscle memory, just reach over there if I was not using the actual steering wheel controls for the radio. But anyway, very happy with how this turned out. The features on this are fantastic. Very, very happy. And so thank you to Crutchfield for making the good installation product to make it go in and make it look like it actually is supposed to be there. Till next time, thank you for tuning in. Make sure that you hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, whatever the heck that thing does. But personally, I'm just going to say I don't like notifications. I get enough of them. So if you don't, that's all right. But please go ahead over to my Patreon page, sponsor me, and help us continue to put out fun video content. I hope that this was informative and helpful for you if you are doing one of these installations. Don't be afraid to do it yourself. Yes, it looked horrible in the middle of it with all of this stuff. Looked like the dash exploded. To quote one of my favorite movies, it turned inside out and then it exploded.
Oh no, everything's fine.
But the animal is inside out.
I heard that. It turned inside out?
And it exploded.
So anyway, very happy with this. See you next time on Cliff Jumper Cars.
And on that terrible disappointment, it's time to say goodbye. We'll be back.